Reacting to my favorite shots from the 2026 World Baseball Classic. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Pete Gottschalk. If you're new here, I'm a content producer at Major League Baseball. I do a lot on the social side, video shooting and editing, of course, and I just got back 2 days ago from the World Baseball Classic. It was a lot of work for almost 2 weeks down in Miami. I was there for pool play and then also, of course, all the knockout games as well, all the way up through the final. And it was a blast, let me tell you what. And by the way, I'm recording this internally here, so hopefully this mic hold does its own and does its job, because I actually packed my headphone jack to make the audio internal in camera because I'm moving. So this is the last video you guys will see from this setup. I'll get into more of why later, maybe the next video or vlog, but stay tuned there. But back on track, I want to break down some of my favorite shots that I got during those 2 weeks in Miami, and I'm gonna talk about, how I shot them, why I shot them, what was going through my head at the time. First, I'm gonna preface this with, if you're unfamiliar with this channel or what we shoot on, I shoot on a Canon C70 with a multitude of lenses with Major League Baseball, and I have been for the last 5 years, 6 years. So let's get into this. I'm gonna do chronologically. The first game that I shot was the Netherlands and Venezuela. So obviously that is Ozzie Albies versus Ronald Acuña Jr. I was personally very excited for it, of course. I'm just on Ronald for the first anthem, actually, of the tournament for Venezuela. So whenever these anthems happen on field, we're allowed one of us to go in on over home plate in between the two teams when the anthems are happening, and we can, capture the emotions on the players. It's a great time for pregame B-roll. It's a very emotional time, and that's kind of why I keyed in on Ronald here. He's obviously one of their superstar players. He's one of the best players in baseball. And I was handheld here on a Canon 16 to 35 mil. Ronald always does his kind of point to the sky celebration, and I wanted to kind of capture that as kind of a barometer for the tournament, right? So I'm still figuring things out. I know he's gonna use our content on his own platforms. I know this is a shot that we're gonna use going forward. So if Venezuela makes a run, which of course, if you don't live under a rock, they won the whole thing. So B-roll wise, this was a great thing to have, especially early on in the tournament. So just get Ronald handheld pointing up. The reason I'm down crouching here is because I want to make the athletes look larger than life. So pro tip for any of you new shooters, the lower you shoot, the larger the athletes are gonna appear on screen, right? Because you're kind of shooting up at an angle, and that is gonna make them appear larger than life. So a lot of the times it's better to shoot lower. This next one is Junior Caminero's home run from that first game against Nicaragua. So this was the same day as that Ronald shot. This was just the night game in Lone Depot, and this was insane. And I never have seen a reaction like this before, and this is just sums up World Baseball Classic to a T. So I'm a little blocked here, and I debated not going on Caminero, but to be honest, he's such a good player, hits a lot of home runs, wanted to focus on him. 60 frames a second just so I could slow it down in post afterwards, and I just get him going crazy around the bases. Now let me pause it. Here is a moment where I use manual focus, and in this instance, maybe using autofocus would have been better here. The reason I use manual all the time, and if you've watched this channel, you've heard this a million times, but the best shooters in the world, so NFL films, documentary shooters, anyone like that is always gonna shoot on manual for the most part, unless you're on a gimbal or something else, or someone else is rolling focus, whatever, regardless, that's still manual as well. But the best shooters in the world in their professions are always gonna be manuals. Keep that in mind when you're learning. When you're peaking on, it'll help you in the long run, I promise. Let me start it again. This one here, look, he's coming at me really fast, and I'm on a 200 to 400 lens, and this is gonna be a really hard shot to focus regardless. So again, I've said these words before if you watch this channel, as long as the shot is in focus enough, that's what matters. You don't wanna be losing focus for 3-4 seconds. If you're out of focus or you're crossing the subject's focus with your focus, it's gonna be fine. Get those big emotions, those fist pumps, those smiles, in focus enough. It doesn't have to be super tacked. Of course you want it to be, but for the most part here, as he's reacting, pumping his fist, shows his jersey, which is the part I really wanted to get, I get it in focus. And then of course the reactions at home plate are great as well. And I think we posted the Julio one, this one right here. I think we posted that, and that did well as well on its own. Keep that in mind when you're learning to shoot. If you're a young shooter, young videographer, definitely try manual focus. Practice it. It's gonna take a while, and it might seem weird at first, but practice it because you're gonna need it at some point, I promise you. So this next shot was actually an idea for an edit I had in my head, and if you are on football Twitter, or soccer rather, you know, you're on Twitter in general, you might have seen this shot of the old Spanish national team. So like David Villa, Iniesta, Piqué, all those guys. And it's the broadcast camera shot, and it's going through their like whole super star-studded team, and they're all looking really intimidating. And it's like very aura emitting for, you know, Gen Z terms. I wanted to get the starting lineup in that kind of same pan style in slow motion so I could speed ramp it and make an edit, which that edit itself did pretty well on both TikTok and our own Instagram, and then ESPN picked it up once the DR was eliminated and put it in the collage. So it was pretty cool. I stayed up really late doing it, and it was fun because I liked this shot. I wanted to do it, and the vision that I had in my head before the tournament came to life. Right here, I'm just on a gimbal. I believe I'm on f4. I don't think I'm on f2, and I'm on a 16-35 lens, and it's a pretty standard shot, right? So I'm just panning, trusting the autofocus here that it'll keep up with all these guys' faces. And truthfully, if it can't match these guys' faces here, or if it can't lock on these guys' faces here when I'm moving this slowly, like I'm never gonna use the autofocus ever again. But it does a really good job here, and I'll flash kind of the edit that I made with this in the long run, because the shot is really kind of mundane, I suppose, but whenever I put it in the edit and I speed ramped between each player and I flashed their stats and how insane this lineup was, came together just how I envisioned it. This next shot is a Julio Rodríguez runout. So it's from the same game. It's the first game that they played. We do a lot of stuff with Julio. We make a few of his videos. We do content with him pretty regularly. I went up before the game and I told him that I was gonna do this with him. And he was like, all right, bet. He ended up using it on his TikTok. This is just your standard runout. So it's 16-35 DJI RS2 gimbal. And I think I had an iPhone mount as well. So it's a very heavy rig for that gimbal. So it's not perfectly balanced, but it does a pretty good job here. As Julio's coming out of the dugout, I'm on autofocus. I believe I'm on I think I was on f5.6 here, just because I wasn't sure where he was gonna go, and I wanted everything to be relatively in focus. So as Julio gets close to me, I kind of lose his head in the frame. It gets it enough right, and it's kind of cool as he gets closer to you. Skips over the line here, and you can see there's a little bit of jiggle in the gimbal, but for the most part, especially in slow motion, you're not gonna notice it. And the iPhone angle is something that I recommend y'all try if you have a gimbal or you're doing stuff like that. Getting that iPhone angle, whether it's for BTS or just another angle for content that might be more relatable to a fan, I highly recommend putting an iPhone mount on top of your camera, of course, if you can. He's looking up at some of them DR fans in the crowd and just kind of acknowledging them, looking over at the camera just a little bit. It's just a cool moment, right? So the reason I wanted to do this run out with Julio is because, you know, he's very proud of his Dominican roots, as most of those guys are, and it's a cool run out to center field. You know, you get the lights, you get the crowd, he can look at the crowd in the outfield, and it's just a cool moment to capture, right? First game at this World Baseball Classic for your country, something to be very proud of. This next one is from the first base photo well. It's a Luis Severino reaction. Sevy reacts to everything, so I learned that. I don't shoot him that often, but this is a Canon 200-400. Going tight, and like, you know, this whole game, I think I mixed up my lenses. I was going 70-200, but I think mid-game I switched to a 2-400. So this one is here tight, and I knew he was reacting to every, you know, big strike three call. And this is just a great reaction to get. I wish he kind of reacted towards me more, but you can't get them all. And I didn't expect him to jump either. So that's just your good classic reaction shot. I was happy with how that turned out. Another shot here from the same game. I'm gonna talk about kind of the importance of B-roll here. So this is a Tatis Jr. shot. Getting details is something that I stress a lot, right? So if you're getting the same shot over and over with a 70-200 or a different lens for that matter, if really any scenario, if you're shooting stuff over and over or you wanna build a story, definitely make sure you're mixing up your focal lengths. Getting details, getting really tight in on your subjects when we have B-roll like this. And whenever you're doing it, maybe add a little motion like I did here. So I start at his feet. This is a shot that I do a lot, right? So bat tapping the plate, start at his feet, and then you kind of just ISO up as he's raising his hands to hit. That's a shot I do hundreds of times a year. And I do it just because I think adding that little motion and revealing the athlete slowly like that just adds a little bit more to the shot rather than just a static shot of him stepping in. Next one is 4K 24 frames, so it's gonna get that more little cinematic look. It's a Tatis Jr. Grand Slam. So I'm in the crowd here. I'm first base concourse, which at Lone Depot is an amazing, amazing shot. It's a really clean vantage point. You're not blocked by fans, which you are a lot of times in most stadiums in that specific spot. but let's play this. So Tatis obviously hits it here, and the crowd is going to be mostly Dominican. I believe this was against Israel. So in Miami, our crowds were, mostly Dominican, Venezuelan, a lot of Nicaragua fans as well, of course, a lot of USA fans once they got here, but Dominican fans really showed out. So I knew it was going to be a majority Dominican crowd. If I pause this here after he hits a bomb, I wanted to get their hands being thrown up, right? So I basically framed it at about 100 millimeters, is on a 7200, and I framed it so home plate and Tatis was they were kind of more so in the top left of the frame, like up here rather in the frame, so I could get more of that crowd in the composition, and this is exactly what I was going for. And I will say one thing about this shot. I wish that my f-stop had been higher, so I was at f2.8, and for future reference, if you guys are ever shooting from the crowd or catwalk or up high, upper deck, make sure your f-stop is a little higher than that. So he's a little soft on his helmet here. So like, for example, if you're shooting at 2.8, right like this lens now, I'm gonna be in focus. It's a little wider, so like you're gonna get stuff less blurry, but if this was zoomed in, like if I get closer, the blurrier the background gets. You're not gonna want that when you're shooting from an elevated angle. Like, player's gonna be tall, you want a higher f-stop, so like the feet aren't in focus and the helmet's out of focus, or the other way around. You're gonna wanna up that f-stop to like f4 or higher, I would say, depending on what your plane or your angle looks like. And that's one regret I do have with this shot. This one is from the Dominican-Venezuela game, the last game of pool play. It was a game I had circled for a while. We all had circled, to be quite honest, because the atmosphere was insane. Like I said, the Dominican fans, Venezuelan fans really showed out in Miami. It was awesome. And I was doing the post-game run out. Venezuela had 2 runners on. It was a 2-run game. So the go-ahead run is at the plate here. And this was a new development. They scored 2 runs in the 9th, I think. So if Sal Perez, who's up right here, hits a home run, the game is over and Venezuela wins. So it's a high leverage moment. I know there's gonna be a good reaction. I was at f2.8 if I didn't think that walk-off was gonna happen, and then I went up to like f5 because a walk-off happens here. I don't know if I'm going to home plate or if I'm going somewhere else and how players are gonna move and react. So I wanted everything to be in focus. Again, I'm on a 16-35, by the way. So it's a little dark in the end here, but I'm reacting to where the ball is gonna go. Let's play this clip. So Perez hits a grounder, weak ground ball. At this point, I know it's probably over because this is hit to, I think, Manny or something. All right, it's over. Let me scroll forward. Not my finest balancing work at all here. If I speed this up, it's really not very good work, and that's because I had the iPhone on top of it. And I'm also like moving the f-stop in while I'm running. But obviously get those Soto reactions, Soto and Julio pumping the crowd up because it was such a high emotion moment. And if I pause it, they're already kind of in focus here. So that's the benefit of going higher f-stop, and you're wide, you're gonna get a lot more in focus. Let's speed it up here to when I get close to them. And then this is why I like this shot. There's just so much pure raw emotion with the jumping and the high fives, as you'll see. Julio and Soto jump, good celly there. And then they do their little, like, what I don't know, Dragon Ball Z celebration kind of thing, or I don't know what it is. I don't know if that was identified or titled during the tournament. Get them hugging, but where I really like it and where it kind of went viral was the Dominican team dancing. So when I'm shooting this in this moment, see, as you can see, it's a little dark, by the way, and that's because I moved to f5. This dance line really went off on social because the Dominican team has such a good vibe around it. Latin baseball in general has such an amazing vibe, and the fans are awesome, so nice. But there's a lot of dancing. It's just fun. It's a good time. And this one, they had their little post-game song on, and they're all dancing. Like if I skip forward to Vladdy here, just like when you hear the music and the sound, it's really cool. This next one is Eugenio Suarez, just a little bit of B-roll here. I liked the symmetry of this shot of how he's standing right over the Venezuelan flag. So I tried to kind of pull back on it. And if I speed it up to 4 times, I really like the pan down, and it starts with him like, you know, with a pretty shallow background at f2.8, and it does a good job there. So just adding motion on that gimbal, 16-35 in slow motion there. That's a good B-roll shot to kind of intro the game if you're making an edit or a recap or anything like that. Overall, just looking for those compositions and those lines and symmetry will help y'all in the long run. This one here is another example of some B-roll that I liked at f2.8 in the lighting. I wanted to get Vladdy proud Dominican, of course. His father also Dominican. Laddie, by the way, Dominican and Canadian, because he's born in Montreal, but obviously loves playing for his country, Dominican Republic. And I like the focus catching here with a little bit of the light leaking at the top is why I like this shot. Now, obviously, I'm not really noticing that in the moment, but once I notice the focus catch, I'm gonna pan back here and kind of give a little bit of motion to the shot, compose it with him maybe a little smaller in the frame, and highlight the enormity of the stadium and the crowd and the moment of the World Baseball Classic, and then pan back to get a little bit of, you know, motion and things like that. I'm gonna do this Acuña Jr. home run. Ronald, obviously one of my favorite players to shoot, shot thousands of homers. Well, not thousands of homers, then he'd be the greatest of all time, but hundreds of homers over the years of Ronald's. It's against Japan. The emotion in the building was awesome. There are a lot of Japanese fans, a lot of Venezuelan fans. Off Yamamoto, leadoff homer. Seen Ronald do this many times. Got the limbs and stuff and his reaction turning back around. So just loved it. And another reason I like this at the end is him kind of crossing the plate. So I zoom in a little bit because I know the crowd, I got my crowd limbs. I'm gonna zoom in and get a little bit more of him kind of celebrating and beating his chest at home plate. And as you can see here, this is the same angle from the Tatis homer earlier. So if I zoom in, or if I find a frame, there's a lot more in focus. That's because I'm at f5.6 here, and that's, you know, something that I identified in that Tatis shot earlier in the tournament, how I was at f2.8, his helmet was a little blurry. I wasn't super satisfied, rather. I love that shot, of course, but I knew it could be better. After that shot, when I was in that angle, whether I had a 70-200 on, like this shot, or I had a 2-4 on, I jumped my f-stop up to like f5.6 or f5, maybe even 6.3 for certain shots. So just learning on the job. Not all of us are perfect. You're gonna miss certain things. You're gonna miss focus at times. It is what it is. You're a human being, ultimately. And another example here from the same angle. This is a different shot because I had a 2-4 on. f5.6, 24 frames, a second 4K. Wilyer's massive home run. This one is everywhere on Twitter. He flipped his bat to like literally the moon. Like it went so high. And just getting that raw emotion is kind of what I was going for from this angle. Let me play it again. I knew if he hit a home run in this moment, it was a go-ahead homer. He was gonna go crazy. So this angle kind of spawned a angle that we did the rest of the way for the remaining games after this. This was a quarterfinal. And we had someone up there from this same angle getting those pure raw emotions. So 2-400 up there in slow motion. So whenever a player would kind of react or flip his bat or slide into home, you're gonna get that slow motion reaction. This obviously I wasn't in slow motion for, which I kind of regret, but it is what it is. We had like 4 other cameras, so we had it plenty covered. Okay, this next shot is the Gunnar Henderson game-tying home run in like the 4th inning against the Dominican for the US. So this is a 1-run game, and like I said, since we had multiple shooters uploading and shooting in real speed, I decided to go slow motion here, a little tighter, so I could get the reaction from the dugout. This was my goal here, so if Gunnar hits a homer, I was gonna rack focus to the dugout. Another reason why you could use manual focus, have more control over that. But Gunnar hits this, it's a no-doubter, right? So the dugout's gonna hop up, and right when Gunnar hits it, I know it, the way he reacts. So I'm gonna pan focus here to Pete Crow Armstrong, Matt Holliday, the coach in the dugout, Bregman's in the dugout, Harper is going crazy as well, and Gunnar's in the foreground, and you get these guys going crazy in the background. Bobby Witt is going nuts. So got that as well, and then kind of keep going with Gunnar as he flips the bat. Love this shot. You know, probably could have kept with him a little better there around first or as I get past the dugout, but I wanted to stay on the dugout. But overall, that's really it about this shot. Go back to Gunnar as he's rounding the bases, pretty standard there, but just wanted to capture the emotion of the dugout in slow motion. Okay, so here's another example. This is from the semifinal, same game against the US. We had like a shooter outside third, had a shooter outside first. We had a shooter concourse, and then we had someone in center field. We might have had another roamer, I can't remember specifically. But as the game's going on, we had a group chat where we would be like, okay, Foss, you take the hitter here. I'll take the Dominican pitcher because I know he's gonna react and walk towards my dugout, or the dugout over here. So that's why I'm on Sevy here. Foss was on the hitter. Lucas, I get blocked here, but Lucas was on the hitter too, I think, and Sevy just goes crazy. He does kind of react at the US dugout, which is nuts. But overall, you know, I know I'm gonna get his face walking towards me. So if you have multiple cameras, if you are new to this whole thing, coordinate, you know, between each other as you're shooting. If one of you's on one end of the basketball court, one of you's on the other, one of you can shoot the bench, the other can shoot the game action. Or, you know, whatever, using that as an example. Here's another one. This is a Skenes reaction to the final out. Same game when they beat the Dominican Republic. Now, obviously, Skenes, this has been well documented, but served at the Air Force Academy for 1 year, or 2 years rather, and then went to LSU and won a national title. Best pitcher in the game. He started this game, pitched pretty well, and I wanted to capture his reaction. So it's a 1-run game. I gambled on this shot, which is why I put it in here. We were texting, like I said, communicating in group chat before. The winning run is actually at the plate here. I think it was Perdomo. If Perdomo hits a homer, the Dominican win. So I'm essentially gambling that Perdomo's not gonna hit a homer. But I was able to do this because we had other shooters. Again, good example. I know Foss was on the hitter here. We had a camera in the lower concourse, Lucas Stevenson, and we had a camera in center field. So they're gonna get, one of them is gonna get the hitter. I'm the only one with the clear shot on Skenes looking this direction. So I gambled here and I went with Skenes, and it was one of the more viewed and engaged clips we had, especially on Twitter. But look, just a pretty standard dugout shot. It's a little softer than I would have liked, but it was hard to tell what the peaking was hitting. But Skenes goes crazy here, and he doesn't often react to a lot of things. So getting that shot of him reacting 3 times was, you know, something I was proud of, and it did really well on social. And it's just another example of what our team is able to do in Major League Baseball, especially when we have multiple cameras. And this last shot that I want to go over is this Aaron Judge ISO. And, you know, we have these light shows during the finals and these big events, all-star games, whatever. We have these light shows, so it's a really good time to capture B-roll. And whenever you get this many superstars in one shot, like, you gotta go off. You gotta just roll on everything, roll slow motion, 4K, and that's what this is. This is at F5 or 2, no, this is F2.8, I do believe. And as I get closer, as those lights are going around, Judge comes into focus on the autofocus, and I get close to him, and then I pan back. Always moving on the gimbal, staying moving. The faster you move, the better the shots are gonna look. Get Judge with those lights in the background. Harper's right next to him. Bobby Witt's over there. Schwarber, Bregman, Roman Anthony. Like, you can't make it up. You can't make it better than that, and I'm really proud of that one. So that is my breakdown of my favorite shots that I got during my 2 weeks in Miami at the World Baseball Classic. I hope y'all were able to gain some insight into how I get my shots and what I do in certain situations. And of course, gear as well, and what I would use utilizing to capture this tournament. If you guys have any questions about specific shots that I went over, definitely let me know in the comments. I'm always open on Instagram. It might take me a little bit to reply, especially as I'm pretty busy right now. I'm moving, and I'll get into that, like I said, in the next video. But I appreciate y'all for watching. If you are new here, please subscribe. Also, all of y'all like the video. It really helps the channel. And I'm sorry for the lack of videos in this month, just because I've been really busy. But anyway, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace and love.